let's go back to 1989. What it was, there was 495,000 stolen from a security van in Whalebone Lane, Dagenham, in October 1989. Now, what it was, I got caught what Scotland Yard say was the getaway car the night before this robbery, and 7 months later, they seem to have pieced everything together according to their theories of who's involved, what happened, and basically what went down that day and events after. Now, it was a good 7 months after that they come and arrested me, the van driver, John Aiken, who lived in Whittam. I lived in Ipswich at the time, and they also arrested, well, they didn't arrest him as it goes. This is what we didn't know. Apparently, Tony Tucker was questioned at his shop, which was a weeder supplement shop in Ilford, by a flying squad. He wasn't arrested and taken to a police station under caution and got a 6 o'clock call like me and John did. He was questioned at his shop. He wasn't charged, so I don't know what that's about. Without 100%, he grasped us, without a doubt. He was up and coming, if you like, compared to, say, the rest of us who were just basic doormen at the time. He had a little bit of cash coming in, and he didn't want that upset or ruined. The part they said Tucker played was very minor in the scheme of what some of the others are alleged to have played, including myself. So basically, you know, it doesn't add up. That's the facts. And obviously that's all confirmed, you know, by others, not me saying it. The other two alleged robbers, which is Dave Redwin and Roger Barkley, were in Spain at the time of mine and Aiken's arrest. Now, we don't know what that was all about. According to some of the officers involved in this robbery, what do you call it? Robbery, the case. They was under surveillance in Spain. Now, that's not true, because our defence, none of us know anything about any surveillance. That would have been used in court. What happened was, 7 months after this alleged robbery, they rounded us up. Tucker got questioned and nothing had happened to him. I've only seen him once after that event to this day. Me and Aiken got remanded in Chelmsford jail. And then a week or so later, Redmond and Barkley flew in from Spain, which was a holiday, and they got arrested at the airport, taken to the police station, charged and remanded, and joined me and John Aiken in Chelmsford jail. Yeah, I was on remand for 7 months, and obviously then I can start telling you about how Pat Tate and Steve Niprellis, I shared a cell with him for 7 months, and how I know Tate. But we was in Chelmsford for 7 months. I got bail, and then I was out for 5 months on bail, and then we had a month's trial at Chelmsford Crown Court, which was a week's pre-trial where they sort of threw in or threw out evidence, and then we had a 3-week trial. At the end of that, we all got found unanimous guilty. And that's it, really. What happened was, we went back to Chelmsford. We was all on B wing, which is remand convicted wing. I got ghosted out quite soon to Wayland in Norfolk, which is a C-Cat. All the others got dispersed to B-Cat jails. I believe John went to Winston Green to get put somewhere after that, probably up north somewhere. I don't know, Wakefield, who knows. And the others went to the island, Isle of Wight, which was either Parkhurst or the Isle of Wight. I think one went to each. I've no idea. I've never spoken to them since. Yeah, what it was, when I come out, obviously I had no money. So what it was, I went back to work at Hollywood's Ipswich. Lee Chapman was head doorman and wanted me back. And that's the only time I've ever seen Tucker again. It was one night, it was a house night, a rave night, if you like, on a Saturday. I was minding the dance floor. There was a lot of people in the club. It's got 1,500 capacity. So I was watching the dance floor. It's all strobe lights and God knows what. And I could feel someone sort of like watching me. So I remember turning round, and he was about 5 yards behind, just looking at my back. As soon as I've locked eyes with him, that's it, he's run. And that's the last I see him. But obviously he did allow me to work for his security company again.
Yeah. So, but you didn't run after him and try and butcher him or... No. So there was no... there was no heat.
I never even spoke to him. Mm-hmm. What I've learned in jail was all about the drug business, if you like. You got to remember, the jails back in 1989 are not like the jails today. You know, Chelmsford was a good place, if you like. I quite enjoyed my time there. I met a lot of sensible people. You know, it was full of proper people, if you like, armed robbers, drug traffickers. You know, there was a couple in there, a couple of Speed Factory. They was in there. You know, it was good people, and I got a lot of connections there. And also, I learned a lot about drugs. I didn't know nothing about drugs. Obviously, I worked doors. I've seen drugs coming in and out of clubs and stuff, but I've never taken any myself. In fact, this is a true story. On my 25th birthday in Chelmsford Jail, Nipper and Pate spiked me up with my first ecstasy tablet. And that's the first time I'd ever taken any in Chelmsford Jail on my 25th birthday. And that was down at Nipper and Pat. It was a good night. Nipper will tell you. But after that, obviously, from what I learned in jail, I come out and I had good connections. Now, previous to that, I had good transport connections, lorry drivers, you know, transport companies, warehouses and all that. And then I very quickly evolved into drug trafficking. When you're talking drug trafficking, now, look, you've got to understand what level. I say everyone works, whatever you're involved in, any level of criminality, everyone has a level of knowledge and operation. Mine was super high. Look, you might have syndicate this in the UK, OCG that, they pale in comparison to who I was connected to. You know, my link controls a guerrilla army with 18,000 soldiers who literally have their hand on the supply chain of the global's cocaine market. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's the level that I was operating at, you know, for them. And obviously I play a small part in a bigger wheel. It's very compartmentalised, but obviously my part is very well paid. It's just transport. It's literally A to B and everywhere in between across Europe. It's as simple as that. And obviously I was involved for a number of years, and Customs and Excise, law enforcement know very well the level that I was operating at. In fact, years later, I've even taken polygraph tests to confirm the level of operation. And one of the questions was, do I know one gang group who in 1 year imported over 100 tonnes of drugs into the UK? And then other questions related to that. It's all passed, yes. You know, that was down to me. The value of them drugs at the time, it's $1 million a tonne, which would estimate over 100 tonne that year. You're talking about 110, 120 million. NCA valuation is approximately $500 million, and Soccer's is nearly $1 billion. You know, that's how inflated it is, but that's the sort of value that I'm talking about. I was involved in that sort of activity with a number of people for a number of years. I believe it went from, say, 94 to around 2000. So you're talking 5.5 years. By then, I've got enough money to get out of it, and we went 100% legit. That means leaving crime behind. Now, what it was totally behind, you know, you cannot do both, because obviously proceeds of crime, if they catch you with any involvement in the crime, they'll seize my villas, they'll seize my property, they'll seize my money and my property business, you name it, they'll seize it. And what it was, I went into, my dream was always to do property development, and you need a lot of money for that, you know, a few million to begin with. But it all went badly wrong over a number of years for a number of issues. You know, basically I tried to run before I could walk. I wasn't a good businessman, I was a good criminal, but not a good businessman. And you can't run business like you do a drug deal. You know, it doesn't work like that. I kept my eyes off the money and got taken literally to the cleaners, losing millions of pounds. That can be proven and shown. I'm the only one I know who's built 53 houses and flats and made a loss. That's a fact. Anyway, also, what it was, we were doing legit business with a company called Teldex, a man called Steve Dagworthy who lived in Danbury. Now, how I met Dagworthy is another story. I won't go into that for now. It was a trip to Italy before that. Basically, what it was with Teldex, he told us he was buying printing machines and then selling them on at a profit, busting up companies, this sort of stuff. What we believed that to be true. We invested hundreds of thousands of pounds with this Teldex over a number of years. And what it is, when it all ground to a halt, there was a massive Essex police money laundering investigation. And we got dragged into that because we had legitimate monies with Teldex. So we had to go through our accountants and administrators to be involved with the police investigation. Now, what happened was, this is how it all come back me even being involved with police or having anything to do with police. And let me be very clear on that. Look, anyone, hey, it was a mistake. Do not ever try and help police, because it is a big mistake. So what me and my partner decided at the time was, look, this Teldex, this Steve Dagworthy, he hasn't even got a parking ticket. What he's going to do, he's going to scream up. He's going to tell the police he's involved with major criminals, and obviously we're ex-criminals, if you like, as far as I'm concerned, because we're legit businessmen. He's going to turn around and throw the dairy on us. And at the end of the day, police and law enforcement have been after me and others for years, and they're going to come in and seize my properties, my villas, all my businesses, bank accounts and everything, saying we had something to do with drug money and money laundering. Now, to stop that happening, I wanted to get police's attention to let them know, look, we know what's going on with your investigation. Obviously, we're part of it through our accountants, but it's nothing to do with me. I do not know nothing about what Dagworthy was involved in. Any criminal activity at all is a no-no, as far as I was concerned. So I made the decision to ring up Suffolk Police's main intelligence unit, which is based in Lowestoft at the time. Now, that first phone call to them, I took a chance, because could be talking to the person who leaked the information. I didn't know who was on the end of the phone. I said to him, I rang him up, I said, you got a pen? He said, yeah. I said, right, write this down. At the minute, you're carrying out 3 investigations into drugs. I said, boom, you're doing Darren Shelley. You got an investigation into him. I said, write it down. I said, you're involved with Shane Crossfield. You're 24 hours on him. Write it down. I said, and also, you're running an operation into me, Dave Cawston. Write it down. Here's my number. Here's my address. Get someone on the phone. Boom. Well, it certainly worked. I got their attention. Next thing, I got a special branch on my case, wanting to speak to me. Great. So what happened was the first meeting was called, and we called it and arranged it at Stansted Airport arrivals. It was a bit nervous because I thought I might see one of my pals coming off the plane or something, and they'll see me sitting here like that with 2 strangers. The first meeting was at Stansted Airport arrivals, so I told them very directly, look, you've got an investigation going on with Essex Police here at Dagworthy. We've got nothing to do with it. We've done nothing about whatever he's involved in. We've heard rumours that it's millions and millions of pounds, right? We know about X amount of money, but apparently it's Y, it's far bigger. We've heard about drug money, this and that, and it's nothing to do with us. You're going to think it is. He might turn around and point a finger at us, and you might start believing it. I've got my assets here, there, and there. It's all legit. But I'm making you know this is nothing to do with me. But really, they weren't too interested in that. What they were more interested in is how I knew about their ongoing drug operations, right? And why they were running one into me at the time. I'd been retired years. You know, it was just insane, that one. It was madness. So anyway, basically I told them, look, this information is coming out of your main intelligence unit. I'm getting this third hand through divs, mate. I'm not even paying for it, right? And obviously, I then named some of the contacts I had in that force. I said, look, you know, for years we've had contacts in your force. Even, you know, named the person who runs the informants for Suffolk Police, connected to us, who was telling us everything. So, you know, we had law enforcement assisting us in our operations to earn us money at the time, and they were getting paid. Then about 5 months later, I called a second meeting, or they called a second meeting, and I met them. I remember meeting them at Mark's Tay. There was a cafe there by the garage, just off the A12. So basically, I had a meeting there, and I said, look, I can pinpoint you. I know more now where this leak's coming from. I said, Bob, it's coming from the inspector. And this is his name, and I named him. I said, also, you've got some other police. I said, leaking information. This one, that one, this one. I said, they're associated with him. They're talking to him and all the rest of it. Now, what they've done, they made some moves very discreetly for the DCC and got these people moved, or told them not to talk to certain people. They couldn't hang about with these coppers, because basically they hanged about with organised crime. So basically, all I'm doing, I'm burning my own links, if you like, right? But I had no direct contact with this inspector myself. It was the information was for nothing. It wasn't costing me nothing. It wasn't one of my paid informants in the police. You know, this was for nothing. This was the joke of it. Anyway, so that was that. So I tipped them off, told them where their leaks were coming from, and they acted on it. And I believe it was possibly a year later, there was a third meeting. Now, this meeting was called by me to them. And they hadn't heard from me for a long while. So I called the meeting, and I met them at a hotel near Colchester. And basically what I put to them that night, they were a bit dubious about my motives at the time, but off they went, run back to the DCC, and then the big meeting was set up. This was a high-level secret meeting set up in March 2007 at a hotel in Stansted Airport under a false company name and all the rest of it in a big meeting room. I was there for one reason and one reason only, and that was because I had the ability, I'd been asked to go and get back involved at the highest level to stop heroin coming into the UK, at the highest level from source, which is from Afghanistan through Turkey, through Europe, boom, and directly into the UK. That's a fact. And that was in 2007 then. Well, that was what was on offer. I said to them, look, you don't know how it works, I do. And there was 3 different agencies there. NCIS, 2 from soccer, and Special Branch. Now, obviously, I said, look, you know my credibility, my past, look what I've done for these with their leaks. It's all confirmed. I said, this is what's on offer. This is what I want, this is what I need. I don't work for you. Basically, I work for me. This is what I do. I can get involved at this sort of level, but also when you're involved at that level, you'll know a lot about other levels. I said, and basically, I can work this way, I get left alone, and then I can go boom, 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 boom. You can take them, you can leave them, you can take them, and it goes like that. That's how it works at my level. I remember showing them a report at the time from the Home Office. I said, look, this is a Home Office report, and I'll put this out to show you that actual report. It was in 2006, 2007, Home Office figures that 97% of all drugs seized within the UK are through police forces in 300, nearly 400,000 door busts, and most of them are under a gram in weight. Only 3% of drugs get seized at the border, right? Now, I remember saying to them, look, shouldn't that be the other way around? You're letting it in. I know you are, fact. Boom, can turn it around. You get more seizures, and I basically get a licence to drug deal. It's as simple as that. It's millions and millions of pounds, hundreds of millions, you know, and it benefits you and it benefits me. That's how it works at the highest level. And this is what level we're talking about. People won't get it because even those that are in OCG groups or whatever will not operate at this sort of level. Bearing in mind, I'm only part of a bigger picture here. The ones above me are the highest level. Very important. And my job is just to get A to B. Very simple. But obviously, you're risking, 30 years? You get caught and associated with one of them loads. That's the sort of sentences you'll be getting. So, you know, we have to know what we're talking about here. Anyway, also what it was, I could tell that the meeting really was, I wasn't going to get what I wanted. But what happened after that was, they went behind my back, right, and tried to follow me, put me under surveillance. They were more interested in their poxy little leaks with this inspector than tons of heroin entering the UK. And that's a fact. You know, that is unbelievable, shocking and true. That's taking the piss. What you've got next is obviously I moved to Norwich, which is Badger Road, 16 Badger Road. I called a meeting with you. I can't remember really what I wanted you to do. Obviously, I knew you were writing the books and stuff and all that. So we had our meeting in Whitford, didn't we? I lived in Norwich. And basically, I first then told you about the link to Tucker and the robbery. This is the first you heard of it, wasn't it? It was through me, wasn't it? Back then. Now, all I remember is as we got up, I remember showing you the polygraph. You can't remember that, but I remember clearly showing you that and I walked out. We couldn't do nothing. You know what I mean? It went nowhere and that's the end of it.
There was no mention of...
No, never did I say to you,
I
am involved in any conspiracy, indirectly or directly, to murder Tate Tucker Rolfe. I don't know bolt eyes from Adam. Right, I know him as much as he does. He don't, you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous, but I'll get to that. Now, 3 months after I met you, which is about May 2010, which is approximately a year before the siege, I come up with the idea to go and contact John Williams, who of course is the brother of Jack Williams. Now, he lived at a pub, didn't he? Rickenhall, is it? Yeah, Whitehorse, that's it. Proper little dive, ugly barmaid, all that sort of shit. He just sort of lived there, I think, and sort of managed it. He was working during the day as a plumber, from what he told me. So anyway, I called a meeting with him. it took him a little while to sort of trust me, if you like. But on that very first meet, I have to be very clear what I'm saying here, because this is fact, and he can't get out of it. John Holmes knew damn well that my link to these murders was absolute nonsense. It was an idea that I took to John Holmes on our first meeting. I said, look, I've got an agenda. I didn't really tell him too much about. I said, you've got an agenda. You've been trying for a number of years to overturn your brother's conviction. Look, there's a link here to this robbery. I showed him the robbery link, my link to Tucker, to Tate, even to Ellis, all the rest of it. And then I said to him, look, what I'll say is, if I was to say I was around the table when this hit was ordered, I say, boom, it might help your chances of them getting an appeal if you go for the legal team. And what I wanted was to get another high-level secret meet, and this time for them to take action and get what I wanted. Now, I had 3 meetings, possibly 4 meetings, I believe, with John, right? 3 were at his pub over the course of the year leading up to the siege. Now, 1 was a month before, and he knew of my idea, and I did do it, where I walked in a month before the siege. So you are talking April 2011, where literally I'd be bag packed. I thought they'd at least interview me on it, right? To walk into this police station, to throw my hands up, to conspiracy to triple murder, being around the table when the hit was ordered, blah, blah, blah. Hey, didn't want to know. They didn't want to talk to me about it. I didn't laugh or nothing. They just made a few phone calls, and that was it. So anyway, that was a month before the siege. Now, the siege. Let's tell you about that. Basically, lots of reasons for doing it. I'd come to my wits' end, the pressure I was under, the grief. I'd had a direct threat of someone else. Literally, you're in a funny position. Police are pissing about. I went to the MP. He went to the head of soccer, Bill Hughes, Serious Organised Crime Agency. You cannot get no higher in law enforcement in the UK at that time than Hughes. So, mate, I'd had enough. I didn't care whether I lived or died, to be honest with you. That's the truth of it. That's a fact. But Holmes knew that I was going to do that siege, and his part of it, right, was the day that siege started, right, he was meant to inform the media of what it was about. And then obviously forward his agenda, which is say I was linked to the murders, right? And obviously forward my agenda, the secret meeting will expose shit like that. Well, what it was, I give him a phone call half hour after I started that siege. On the phone, John Holmes. It was on my mobile, I believe, or house phone, one or the other. But the police very straight away were obviously monitoring communications and listening through walls straight away, more or less, pretty much straight away. So they knew about this call because he made a statement against me. But anyway, going back, I made the call to him. I said, look, I've done my part now, do your part. Blah, blah, blah. Right, put the phone down. I made 1 call to him during that siege. So he was meant to address the media because he'd done it all before with his protests and all this sort of stuff. So I knew he was capable of doing it. Right, he'd done nothing. He left me hanging. Right, obviously the siege, that's a whole nother story. I don't know how far you want me to go into all that, but literally John Holmes did not do what we planned for him to do, which was to address it all and expose it. He never done nothing. In fact, what it was, after the siege, when I got my statements, he made a statement against me. We're looking for it now. I've got about 4 feet of paperwork and documents. I can't find it in a minute. What he said in the statement was, he said that I met him over the course of a year a few times. He said, I come to him with a connection to Rettendon. Not once did he mention anything about me being linked to these murders, although I told him that was my idea and he knew it was all bollocks, right? But he never said that in the statement. He's not going to, is he? So he's left that open, but what he did say, he believed that I was capable of anything, which I suppose, yeah, technically I am. So, you know, I agree with that one, John. But you stitched me up, mate. You've done nothing. Now, and that was it. And I've never heard from him for that day. Now, what it was, obviously, the siege, I can sit here and tell you about that for a week. And that's where they say, I've tapped the window, I'm pointing a gun at officers, armed officers, and threatened those trying to smash a gate in. They were in fear for their safety. Even the armed ones say that. They've never been threatened with a gun, they know how to react and all that, and they've pulled back. But also, in the notes, it says there's snipers in positions and all that. If I'd have pointed a gun at any police, I'm dead. Because at the time, they didn't realise it was a fake gun. And later on, after that incident, then they turn around in the notes and say that they're hostages. They were never hostages, right? I've got 2 guns and now I'm a hypomaniac. which means you're totally out of control. I obviously served 18 months of a 3-year sentence in Norwich jail. So anyway, while I was in jail, like the first time in 1989, I used my brain. I link up with contacts who are going to assist me when I come out. So what I done, when I come out, I set up an operation, right, linked to the global #1 terrorist drug lord on the planet. I won't name him now, you've seen the name, and so does everyone else, they know who he is, and I will show evidence to this. I'll show your readers, your listeners, what it's all about at the end of the day and who this fellow is. So I link up with him through his son in Marbella. I have my contact flying over to see him. Also, I'm asked to get involved in a contract here, a real one, not lies like Rettendon. This is real, right? So I start organising there. In fact, the people I'm organising it for, a couple of them were talking to police about me. So I knew I was being set up, right? This was accelerating, this contract here. I was paying out more money. I was even paying for it. I was paying out expenses to the hitman and everything else. I'm the only one dealing with the hitman. So basically, I'm the only one involved, right? So boom, I'm throwing myself under the bus. Also, there was automatic weapons being shipped in, and also I had access to passports out the passport office. That's national security, not police. Fact, I've even got police confirming that, right? So what I'd done, when I come out, I set up these links, and then what I'd done, October 2013, straight away, picked up the phone to MI5, told them exactly what's going on. Bang, I've got, boom, a link directly, terrorist drug lord, boom, automatic weapons, passports out of the passport office. I'm involved in a contract here. It's getting out of control. Boom, needs action. Nothing. Nothing from MI5. Right, how come? Boom, so where can I go? I can't go to police, right? It starts getting out of control. The contract hit starts accelerating. The hitman is even surveying the target, waiting in vans outside their houses like police do. Fact. Anyway, it gets worse and worse and worse. I'm getting more involved, potentially, to drug traffic, tons of cocaine into the UK and through Europe, linked directly to the FARC, which is a guerrilla army contact. You know, thousands strong, with their hand right on the production of the world's cocaine. My direct link is their top man. So that's what we're talking about here. Now, this terrorist drug lord was wanted by George Bush and every intelligence agency in the past. We've got all the documentation, but trust me, they don't want him. Because later on, he was offered up to other agencies as well, not even like domestic ones, foreign ones, and they don't want him. So there can only be one answer, and that's got to be that he is their asset. It's as simple as that. So that's what happens. So anyway, let's go back. So these things are running. Boom. The drug operation is in preliminary talks. No drugs are coming in. It's all in the talking phase and setting up plans, whatever. Right, that's fact. The contract here is accelerating. Boom, boom, boom. I'm even having the weapon converted. Especially, it started off as a £50 shotgun, right, got cut right down, boom, stock taken off, and all the rest of it fitting down here, boom, like that, about that big. That's the weapon that's going to be used. That's being converted by me for the contract hit, for the target. So I'm involved in a conspiracy to murder, major drug trafficking, right, passports out of passport, and automatic weapon smuggling, right? And my terrorist drug lord smuggled in 1999, you've seen the documents, 10,000 weapons in one hit for the FARC. You cannot get no bigger on the planet than him, right? So I've got all these things, and I can't get no attention. But I'm getting deeper and deeper into it. I'm screaming for help. Nothing's coming. No one's coming to help me, right? But what MI5 do is they tip off police who form an operation into me to take me and others out. They forget the drug lord. He's halfway around the world, right? But boom, that's that, called Operation Vascular. That's the fact. Now I've got the details in there. I've even got a recording where a third party is leaking operational details told to them by police of an operation, an undercover operation into a drug lord terrorist. How shocking is it? I'll put it out there. I don't give a F. So every operation, like I said, I've destroyed. Now what it was, it all got out of control. So I end up recording everyone involved in this contract here, getting them all on tape, right? Boom, as evidence. What it was, they found out about that. So then, boom, now we're in problems, isn't it? Because the person who wanted this hit done, multi-millionaire, all the rest of it, linked to football clubs. I won't say his name, but I will do. I'll even name the target at the end of the day so he can be made aware of it. So he can go to police and I can prove everything I say. He'll be shocked. He's living today down to me. That's a fact. Right? Otherwise he'd be dead and I'd be nicked. I'll be doing life, obviously, right? Because I'm being set up. And MI5 knew about it all from day one. So did police. They're letting it all run. So at the end of the day, when these people knew that I was recording them, I had to pull the plug and leave Norfolk. I wasn't prepared for gun battles and all the rest of it. I had access to lots of weapons, real dangerous shit. So I pulled the plug and left. That night, I come down to Chelmsford. I had an argument with an associate of mine, nearly got run through with a samurai sword. Right, it's the second time I've come close to death. And that's that, boom, then I ended up in Chelmsford. Mate, it weren't pretty. Stressed to hell, under a ton of pressure, boom, I had to up and go. All because who do I blame at that point in time? Boom, now I blame MI5 and police. Anyway, 2014, end of 2014, I've come to Chelmsford. It's all gone wrong, boom. So literally, for the next 4 years, I'm living in a bedroom, got limited funds now. Boom, I didn't even have a car because, mate, I didn't want to bug in it, whatever. I hired one if I needed it. I'd never been without a car. So I literally just focused on training and literally then I went to battles with these agencies, with complaints process, through this process, through that process. But more and more what I'd done, I forwarded the plan of this Rettendon link into these murders. Also, I made a connection through a solicitor who was doing some work for me, Tony Bennett. He was involved with a man named Les Borkwell, who became a good friend of mine for a good few years. What I did, I give Les a file. This is important. I knew that he was working with the ex-detectives. Right, so I give Les Borkwell a file to give the ex-detectives. This is around 2015, maybe slightly into 2016. Now, in this file was the link to the murders and a connection to Rettendon and the robbery. Now, I give Les the file. 2 weeks later, he gives it back to me. Now, what I was expecting was these people to try and help me, my case, because I show police corruption, the same police they say they can't break down, IPCC corruption and all the rest of it, right? Anyway, the file was handed back to me. And all they said to me was, they said it was very interesting. Well, I was a bit disappointed, but in that file was my documents, all my write-ups about the robbery, my connections to Tucker, and all the rest of it was in that file. And that's where this theory come from. It was my theory that was handed to them in 2015. And I can prove that by the paper clippings that come out years later. Now let's move on. 2018, I get caught with a handgun. Now police should have taken it off me. I get caught with that. I'm down Chelmsford police station for 5 days. Now what I'm coming out with, I've got no evidence to prove anything. I'm saying, look, Chief Constable's all aware of these guns. They should have taken them off me, but it's all on the hearsay, everything. Right, nothing. Then from that, I actually get sent for assessment and sectioned for a 28-day assessment at the Linden Centre, which is next to Broomfield Hospital in Chelmsford. Now, what happens in that 28 days is I've got no access to internet, no access to any of my evidence, files, recordings, no nothing. It's my sort of word. I was very careful what I said. I didn't start bleating on about terrorists and all this stuff. I kept it something simple that they'd understand. But look, it's like you now. If I say, look, 5 chief constables were directly offered them weapons, you've seen the evidence, haven't you? You know it's true. But if I was to tell someone in the street, they're going to say, no way. Chief constable's not taking guns, but it's true. Now, at the end of the day, if I say that to people, first thing they question is your mental health, isn't it? Obviously, right? And rightly so. I wouldn't blame them. If someone told me what I was saying, I'd be sceptical. And that's the truth of it. So, boom, came back. So what happened was, during that 28-day assessment, 2 weeks into it, a group come down at the Met Police called FTAC, Fixated Threat Assessment Centre, right? Now, they come down for a closed meeting with a doctor 2 weeks into the 28-day section, a closed meeting, right, bang. Now, whatever they've told that doctor, he has then given me, I wasn't even aware of it at the time, a diagnosis of delusional disorder, right? You know what that is, didn't you? You're deluded, apparently, right? Boom. Now, 28 days later, they can't hold me, I'm released. I did get gate arrested in charge of extra ammunition, but then the police released me. Right, so I went back home to my own flat now. And what it was, I was out for a few months. And then I had to go in voluntary for an interview about the firearm. Right, so when I go in for an interview about the firearm, then bang, I'm remanded. And I remember at the desk when I went and they read my charges, one of the reasons for not getting bail was I've got terrorist connections, links to gun gangs and something else as well. I can't remember what it was. So they were the reasons. I wasn't going to get bail anyway. So I go to Chelmsford Court, charged with the gun, like possession of a firearm, possession of ammunition, and arrested possession of drugs. It was a sample. That's got a Rettendon connection, but I won't go into that for now. Right, so anyway. So I get remanded, right? 4 months in the Chelmsford jail on G-Wing, everything's going all right. I go and ask the psychiatrist for some sleeping tablets, because that's what I'm prescribed. Bear in mind today that, listen, I'm on no medication, only for me, bad knees, painkillers. No antipsychotic medication, no mind control shit, nothing, right? I'm not on nothing. So anyway, I go to Chelmsford jail on remand now for the firearm. This is February, March 2018. So, no, a bit later than that, because obviously I've come out of that Linden Centre. They can't hold me under section, right? Boom, I'm released, right? So they couldn't hold me. So I go to Chelmsford jail. Now I'm in there for about 4 months. I go and see the psychiatrist with some sleeping tablets. He starts questioning me about what I was saying at the Linden Centre, right? About police not taking the guns, all this sort of stuff. And I start telling him again, yeah, they weren't taking the guns, all that. Now, I don't think he believed me, right? Well, most people wouldn't. I can accept that. Well, what he done then, he thought that I was either making it all up, right, or I'm deluded, right? Because obviously I didn't know previously that I'd been stamped with delusional disorder. No one told me, right? So I didn't know. But obviously he knew, right, because he see the records. So then what happens was I go back to my cell after seeing this psychiatrist. And I believe it was about a month after, all of a sudden I went to go to work. I was packing biscuits in Chelmsford jail, that's a stupid job. And I go to walk out and he went, no, you're being shipped out. What do you mean shipped out? He said, get back to your cell. I'll tell you when you get moved, pack your kit. So I go back to my cell, start packing my stuff. Anyway, they come and open me up. I said, what's going on? Where am I going to? They said, you're going to Brockfield House. I said, where's that? I've never heard of that prison. He said, it ain't a prison, it's a hospital. I went, oh, right, okay. It was a sunny day like it is today. So I packed my kit. I remember going through the reception, Chelmsford jail. Anyway, there was a nurse there. They still had me in the handcuffs, so we jumped in the car. There's a nurse, as in nurse, like a psychiatric nurse, I found out, but a nurse in a nurse's uniform. There's 2 screws handcuffing me, either side, and we're in the back of this car. And we drive to a place in Wickford, right? This is where this place is. It's called Brockfield House. People can Google it. What it is, obviously, look, I knew about prisons, A-cat, B-cat, whatever cat, and that sort of side of it, D-cat. I didn't know nothing about mental health things. Obviously, I spent 28 days under section at that Linden Centre, where there's a little fence, right? And then they've released me because they couldn't hold me under any mental health act, right? Now, obviously now, this is a different ball game, right? This is like a C-cat jail. It's a hospital in Wickford, quite a new hospital. It used to be called the old Runwell, which was old Victorian buildings, a far bigger unit, and that got pulled down and is now a housing estate, and they've built this new building called Brockfield House. It's got about 100 patients in various sort of wings, if you like, units, they call them, not wings. It's not a prison, it's a hospital, right, big difference. It's got a fence around it that you can't climb over. It's about 18 foot, like a C-cat jail. But it's all very modern building, not like a prison. You don't have a cell, right? You go on a ward, which has got about 14 patients, and what you've got your own key, you've got a room similar to this, a hotel room, en suite, all the rest of it, and it is like that. You've got a little area out in reception where there's an office, where there's staff, and you've got all chairs and settees, and there's a telly, there's a table tennis table, pool table, and that's basically it. Right, so anyway, so that psychiatrist, me asking for sleeping tablets, he thinks I've still got something in my head previously, and he wants me now, like, to go there for assessment. And what it is, when you go there, they give you again, it's sort of, you're there for like a month for them to assess you. They put you on no medication or nothing, they didn't, with me anyway, right? So for the month, they sort of assess you. That means, I think I see a doctor, well, you'd think you see doctors more or less every day, but you don't. I see a doctor when I first got taken there, and then I see a doctor after about a week. then basically what they do, all they do is just sort of monitor you. Monitor your behaviour, what you do during the day, how you interact with other patients on the ward. It's not a wing, it's a ward, right, like that. So that's what they've done. Anyway, I suddenly decided, look, hold on. While I was in there, I started finding out about this mental health system and realised this is far better than the prison system, right? If I can stay within this system, I want to blag it and not go back to jail, right? Bearing in mind I've been caught with a firearm, a loaded firearm. You've seen the photos, so the ex-detectives. 9 bullets in the gun, another 6 bullets on the side. That's 15 rounds. A proper 2-2 handgun, not a fake one. You've seen the photos. In fact, it was my favourite handgun. They took it, bastards. Anyway, right? So that's that. So that's a serious charge, right? If I was going through the court system and the prison system, bearing in mind I've been done for the seige, right? I know it was an air weapon, but it's still possession of an air weapon with intent to cause fear of violence on policemen, right? I get caught again for drugs, for the gun, right? I've got 2 ABHs and a common assault to be named, as in violence, and one was going back 17, one when I was 30, and one in 2014. So it's not much violence, but obviously the siege is serious, right? And that wouldn't have even happened, they could have stopped it. So that's serious. And obviously now getting caught with this loaded handgun is a serious offence. If I was to go through the criminal justice system, I potentially could be looking at maybe an 8, right? Potentially. Serve 4 years and you're out. Where would I go? Right, you'd be going, again, map of hostels, all this sort of control shit, probation, blah, blah, blah. I realised and twigged after speaking to people in this mental health system that it's better for me to stay in this system, right? Because what you do, you go through it, right? You take a chance, you either get what's called, when you go to court, right, you have to go to court for your charges, although you're in the mental health system. So what it was, now I'm on the ward for a month, right? They've monitored me, they've done this. Then what they want to do, now I blagged it, so I wanted them to keep me there. So what it is, they're not going to keep you there unless you go on medication, right? And by medication, I mean antipsychotic medication. That's what they put me on after a month, called Rettendon, right? People can Google it. Mate, when I see the side effects, I shit myself, right? But you've got no choice. It's a tablet every day. They make you take it. It put 5 stone on me, right? Shrinks your dick and everything, fucks you up, basically. Right, bad drug, lots of side effects. That's what it done. Ruined me physique, everything, because I was like hinge. Anyway, and fit as well. So that's what happened. So after a month of being in Brockfield House, right, they've kept me there now. So now they deem me to be mentally ill, right? Very important. Every 2 weeks, you have what's called a ward round, where you go into a big room and there's all these people around there, doctors, and they say, yeah, you're doing well, you're doing this, you're doing that, it's all good. Mate, I went through that system. I spent 2 years, 8 months in that mental health system at Brockfield House, and that's confirmed. I'm meant to be violent, I'm meant to be this, I'm meant to be that. I never had one crossword with any member of staff, any patient or anything in 2.5, nearly 3 years. That's a fact. Now, the first I hear my name mentioned to this Jasper nonsense, to this robbery theory, is when I start watching YouTube, and for some reason, I don't follow the case, to be honest with you. And people can look at my history and see that. Law enforcement can look at it and see I'm not obsessed with this case. I don't really know much about it. So anyway, I just happened to be watching, I believe this was put on YouTube a year ago. Did Winks McCrook order their hit or something? Wasn't it? That was the title, wasn't it? And that was a year ago. And it was about a 12, 14-minute video with Patsy Bolt Eyes Clark, where literally they're saying that he ordered the hit and it's linked to this robbery, blah, blah, blah. And halfway through that video, I see my newspaper cuttings and my name, Redwin's name, Barclays and Aiken's name all plastered over YouTube, right? So then now I see what's happened. Bingo, they've taken the bait from the file. Years later, it's 5, 6 years later, mate, I didn't know, I thought it was dead in the water, right? So now, boom, I'm thinking, now there might be another opportunity. Now, I've looked into who's writing these stories, who's doing these YouTube videos, and obviously it's the ex-detectives. I then look back and see in the media that a reporter, John Austin, has been writing these stories on their behalf 18 months previous to this video that I was not aware of, linking this robbery to the murders, right? Was the heist linked to all this crap, right? So obviously that's been going on 18 months previously without me having any knowledge of it. The first I've seen is that Bolt Eyes video, Essex True Crime, a year ago. Then I've obviously started to watch and learn everything. I thought, hold on a minute, now there might be another opportunity to me, and hence this is why I'm sitting here. And obviously that's why I've done the Sky version. Bingo. Right, to address what it is that I can address. Right, they've taken the bait years later from that file. That's a fact, right? And I prove all that as well. They can't get out of it. Right, so anyway, 2 weeks after that, obviously I'm learning, watching Crime Scene to Courtroom and all the stuff written about the Essex Boys, all the videos, all that, so I'm learning more. So it's then that I learn about that Jasper theory. 2 weeks after watching this Boat Eyes video, I see a Liquid Bullet Productions video, YouTube thing, and the ex-detectives in there, right, giving an interview, and it was the Billy Jasper Statements Part 2. It's about an hour long, right, I believe it's got over 100,000 views at present on YouTube. That was 2 weeks after the Boat Eyes one. So you're going back about a year now. And then 24 minutes in that, he says, one of my co-defendants, he says, I can mention Dave Rettendon. He starts bringing up this robbery theory linking to the murders, right, which is all bollocks. Again, they've got that theory from my file, right, fact. So anyway, they think that they've got it, but it's not. So he starts mentioning my co-defendant. He says, I can mention Dave Rettendon because he's dead, deceased. And then 30 seconds later, he mentions me, right, and I'm alive. And he mentions Roger Barkley. He's alive. Then he mentions me again, and I'm alive. So hold on a minute. Now, I'm getting not concerned. I'm thinking to myself, sitting back thinking, there's an opportunity here. An opportunity now to jump on this. Right, so what I've done, I've come up with a plan in my head to basically do a far smarter, better version than Jasper ever could. So what I've done, I've sat back and I thought to myself, look, I've learned everything I can about the case, all this Jasper theory. I see my name being bandied about and all that, and I thought, look, hold on, there's an opportunity here. I've got all this evidence here, bang, from my side of it, which is far more important than these silly murders. There's another opportunity here. Maybe I can expose all this, put myself to this, exactly cement their theory, make it more believable, make it better. And that's exactly what I sat back and done. What it was, after that ex-detective Part 2 business, right, I watched everything, and it was about 6 months after that. And I was umming and ahhing, do I contact them, don't I? Right, so what I done, one day, under a pseudonym, my pseudonym Mike Jones, I done an email on their contact page, and I said, look, my name is Mike Jones, blah, 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 phone number. I've got serious information relating to the Rettendon murders. Nothing. So again, that's gone. So I was in two minds. Look, things are different for me now. It's a different position. I'm getting on with my life. I've got other things involved. But, you know, I want the truth to get out there, really, about all this sort of stuff. What happened with the seige, what happened with me, links to all more serious stuff. And obviously there is a connection to these murders through the robbery. The same players, if you like. If what they say is true and we've done the robbery, there is that connection. But there's no link to actually the murders themselves and the robbery. That is boom. No way in a million years. Right? So anyway, so what it was, I sent the email. Then 2 weeks later, I had nothing. I sent another one. I wrote exactly the same on the contact page as what I'd done 2 weeks previously. Boom, 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 Mike Jones, contact serious information, meant I would only speak to boom, 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 submit. But nothing again. So anyway, time went on. I was sort of debating, do I really can be bothered with this? Can I not? I'm in an argument whether to go through with it or not, right? But in my head, I've cemented a plan. I've got a connection to Boat Eyes, I'll tell you about in a minute, right? I don't want to confuse things. The money. They say, Jasper said, Boat Eyes was owed 300 grand, right? Like you say in your video, right? If he was owed 300 grand, there's nothing left for any of the others, right? It just wouldn't happen. They say he organised that robbery, right? I changed that as well. So what I done, I kept some of the players in place who are dead, who can't like contradict the story. Jasper's never coming forward. That Mr. D's never coming forward, obviously. So what I done, I put together a better, more believable version of a story to their theory, right, than what Jasper did. So the first I made contact with the ex-detectives was the day that your video came out on YouTube, basically about me, which was the false Billy Jasper narrative, 24 minutes, right? When was that?
Can't remember.
About 8 months ago,
yeah.
Something like that, right? Now, I knew that you were going to do something about me, And I also see, because I'm a bit of a spy, I spied on your Facebook group, and I see you were asking for information with my whereabouts to get hold of me to do something about it in your book, right? Obviously now you're going to do more, right? The truth, it is the truth. So basically what it was, I knew that you wanted to speak to me, and I see one of your little trailers, a 6-minute 41 trailer, and in that you show a picture of me, all dramatic, getting tasered, and you say, I've even spoken to one of the robbers, blah, blah. So I knew at some point in the future, you, Bernie, were going to do a video about me and the robbery and my links to you, how we met and all that sort of stuff, right? I knew that was coming. So what I've done, I've obviously submitted 2 contact emails. I've heard nothing for a few months. Then I waited because I knew you were going to bring something out. Now, the day you brought that YouTube video out about me is the day I made my strike to the ex-detectives. What I'd done, first of all, I contacted Michael Kelly, who you know, right? Who obviously was linked to Hollywoods and all that. I spoke with Michael. I told him that I needed to speak to the ex-detectives. I've tried to make contact and I can't get through. So what he done, he contacted them, then I get a number to ring. So basically, I get hold of him on the phone. So now, boom, this is now where I make my move. And this is very important, right? Exactly what I told him is exactly like I'm going to tell you now, like I was on the phone to him, right?
Yeah.
So I ring him up and speak to him. I say, look, boom, boom, boom. It was about a 20-minute conversation. And what I've done, bang, now I've made my move. I've told him, right, my version, a better, smarter version of the Jasper one. I've told him it was nothing to do with Clark. I organised that robbery, right? I said, I'm the organiser. I said, what it was, I said, it's not over 300 grand. It's over 140,000 of money owed from the robbery. I said 100,000 that was owed to John Aiken, the van driver, right? And 40,000 that was owed to me. I said to whoever I'm talking to, like, I got paid 10 and Aiken got paid 10. So I was due 50, I said. I've got 10, so I'm owed 40. Aiken was owed 100, he got 10, so he's owed 90, if you like, right? So boom, so there's a lump of money missing. So basically, what I've said on that phone, right, is this. I've said, so me and Aiken borrowed money, Tucker was holding money, right, while we was in jail for us, right? That's what I've said. So I knew the story that Tucker had obviously bought that Brymont Lodge and all this stuff. Now, even the ex-detective say he paid cash for that. Didn't he? Bollocks, right? That's bollocks. He didn't pay cash for that, £250,000, no way, right? He didn't. He'd have paid a 10% deposit at most, 25 grand, maybe a bit more, that's it. Because back then, that's how we got mortgages, right? You didn't have to show evidence and stuff. You paid a small deposit and they threw money at you, right? We were all getting bad mortgages, done it yourself, right? We knew the same people, obviously. It's as simple as that, right? So that's a lie, but that's something they're cementing. So that shows then to the punters, if you like, on the Facebook groups and all that they're giving the illusion and impression that Tucker has lumps of money, right? That he's thrown about paying cash for that house and vice versa. I said, Tucker was holding our money, right? Our money, meaning mine and John's, while we was in jail, right? That had been handed to Tucker by the others, right? I said, boom. What it was, when we come out of jail, I wanted my money back. Right, Tucker wouldn't give it back. So anyway, what I'd done, I said, look, I know a fella, well, I'm not going to name him, right, but he has got connections to Brinksmat. Because what happened was, I was involved with him, linked to the Teldex, right, scenario, and I got to know him very well. He lost £1 million with Teldex. Well, I'm not going to mention his name. I did to the ex-detectives and I did to Sky, but they say they're going to blank that out, right? But anyway, what I said was this. I have got a connection to that Bolt Ice Car, and this is the connection, right? That this man took me up the A1. We went to look at some property, because I was property development, and we were going to buy a big farm and development up there, somewhere up north. And the person we met laundered some of the Brinksmat money, right? That's a fact. That's true, right? So there is a connection. But I left so many back doors in this story that if law enforcement was to ask me the name that I've given to the ex-detectives, they would go and ask that man, right, and that man would say, yeah, I knew Cawston, but not till 2005, 10 years after they'd been murdered. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So there's no connection to Bolt Ice Clark, right? Boom. But there is, but that's 10 years later. Boom. It ain't happening. I've left so many back doors in it, the whole thing falls down. So anyway, so that's the story that I've submitted. I've said this to him. I've said, Tucker owes us 140 grand. I said, I've asked Bolt Eyes, right, through a middleman, right, to get me the money back. Go and ask Tucker, because he's meant to be a bit of a face and all this stuff. And obviously that's what they're portraying. And it brings back money laundering, link to this murder, link to that, and all the rest of it. Obviously he was, I don't know. I don't know the geezer. But the person I was linked to years later would have done. That's got nothing to do with this, right? Nothing at all. It's just a connection that helps my theory that it's just by luck, if you like. Just
10 years too late. Yeah.
10 years too late, right? So anyway, so what I've said is through this middleman, I've gone and asked him to ask Clark, who's still sort of in jail or on home leave, right? I didn't know where he was. I'll get to that in a minute, right? They didn't really question me much. I'll get to that in a minute at this Sky interview. I'll speak about that in a minute. So what it was, I said, I've asked this middleman to ask Bolt Eyes, right, to get the money back from Tucker. He's asked him for the money back. Tucker's told him to F off, right? Bolt Eyes is not happy. That's been fed back to me. So at the time I've said, right, I'm involved in international drug trafficking. The money's irrelevant. I'm a bit of a bullshit bastard. I've turned around and said, right, boom, fuck it. I've lost 140 grand. I'll give you another 140 grand. Bolt Eyes sort it out. Murder him. Tucker, basically. Take the contract on Tucker. That's what I've said. And that's what I've told them. So I said, it was me who told Bolt Eyes through middlemen, I've paid £140,000 cash in a carry bag, passed it over for the contract to be taken out on the target, Tony Tucker. Pat Tate, I've said, and Craig Rolfe are collateral damage. Right? I just happened to be there. Right?
So how do you feel about now about killing Tucker?
I didn't do it. Right, listen, we'll get to that in a minute.
I am only joking.
Yeah. So, mate, the whole thing is a joke. Well, it's not funny, is it? This is serious business. My side of it is more serious than their side, but their side is still serious. And I get why people look. Another reason for getting involved in this, for making up this story that fitted to their narrative, bearing in mind that they were involving me before I involved myself. I've just made up a better version of Jasper that is more believable, right? And it is more, isn't it? Do you agree or disagree?
It is, but, you know, putting you aside for a moment, I've met the alleged assassin. They say who's the assassin, Mr. D. And he's got a wife, he's got children, you know. And this program will cause that guy a lot of problems and his family. So that they should take all that into account when they're going off on these wild conspiracy theories. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what it is. That they haven't. I mean, have they checked your story out?
Look, this is what happened. Obviously, let's go back. So I've told one of them on the phone that in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So he, later on that day, wants another call. So I have a three-way conversation later on in the day with the officer in the case, the other ex-detective, right, and myself. So I tell them exactly what I've just told you, that version of it.
Except for the punchline.
What's the punchline?
You didn't kill him.
No, I said I did.
Oh, but I mean, you haven't told him that you're lying.
So why would I do that?
No.
The idea of spinning on this story, yarn, is obviously, look, boom, to try and get out this shit.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. This here.
In much the same way as, not to the same extent, but John Williams held up the traffic on the M25 knowing he'd be nicked just so he could get into court. And have his say. He was using it as a platform.
Williams knows that they're guilty.
Well,
this is not fiction.
Yeah.
This is fact.
John would dispute that. I agree with you, but John would say no. In fairness to John. But
I'll bury him in a minute.
He used that.
Yeah. He's trying to do what I've tried to do.
He sacrificed being nicked to give himself a platform.
Like I did with the seige and all that.
Which is what
so we're along similar lines.
Yes, that's what I was
It's a similar sort of like plan, if you like.
That's what I was trying to establish.
So anyway, I have a three-way call with the two ex-detectives and myself, I've told exactly what I've said earlier, boom, 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 right? But then also I've said more about my history, the link to the FARC, the terrorist, MI5, fit up, Chief Constable's weapons, a bit more of the story, without going into too much detail about my history, the drug trafficking, all the rest of it. We was on the phone for about 40 minutes. Then they said, right, we'll be in touch. Now, I've got all the texts and all that thing, right, as evidence. So what it was, a couple of days later, I get a phone call off, not the officer in charge, the other one, and he says, look, we're doing a Sky documentary. And I knew they were doing it because Michael Kelly said he was involved in it. And so do a couple of other people I know, Lee Chapman and Gary Moore, previous friends of mine, right, very well. Obviously, so I knew that was going on. So then he says to me, would I be involved in this Sky documentary, and would I repeat exactly what I've said to them to the Sky documentary makers, i.e. me taking out the contract, paying 140 grand to Bolt Eyes because Tuck loaned us 140 grand, we never got paid out for the robbery, blah, 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 right? Also bearing in mind, look, to cover myself any links to Jasper or Mr. D, I made it very clear that all I've done is give a middleman 140 grand in a carrier bag. He's given it to Bolt Eyes, and Bolt Eyes has done whatever he's done. I've no idea what he's done. Obviously, what he has done is got Jasper and this Mr. D, whoever, and boom. I've left all that side of it. I don't know nothing about it. All I've said is take him out.
But that didn't really happen. That's just what they're saying.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. But I've left that in. So do you see how my story...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I've done. So anyway, so now they've invited me up to film with Sky. Now, he said, we'll disguise your voice. We'll have you covered up, whatever, right, sort of blacked out or whatever and all that sort of shit. So now, look, I've agreed to it. And then I sit back, I think to myself, you know, look, I've either got to go all guns blazing for this or just drop out and not bother. Is it going to cause me problems from law enforcement, from intelligence agencies? Nah. It don't matter whether millions of people see this, whether I put all the evidence out I've got, the satellite, right, all the recordings, all the docket, everything, it makes no difference because nothing ever gets done. Now, let's go back to that filming. I went down there, right, it was a hotel in Waltham Abbey. Better hotel than what you laid out for, but here you go, right?
That's because I'm an honest man.
Yeah, I never got paid for nothing, right? I went down there. I'd never met them in my life, only seen them on the YouTube videos, right? First one to arrive was the officer in charge. He's a big man, like yourself, big man, big tall man, right? So he shook his hand and all that sort of thing. Made a laugh. I said, it's the man who set me up, right? Had a cup of coffee and all that. My pal was here, here now. So then what happened was the other one come in. We had a chat for about 10 minutes. Now, bearing in mind, look, I was expecting after the filming, right, we got there about 10:30 was the start of it. So we went straight into filming. That lasted about an hour and a half. I'll tell you about the actual filming in a minute, how they done it and what they said to me and all the rest of it, because the questions weren't even, I wasn't even under no pressure. Right, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But what it was, right, I was expecting them, after the filming, right, it was about lunchtime, I was expecting them to go and have a bit of lunch, and I'd have told them more about myself, hence about the FTAC, the mental illness and all the rest of it, right? Because it's all part of the story. I've got no worries about disclosing that because I destroy it and show it's a cover-up, right? And obviously today I'm under no antipsychotics, no orders or nothing. My mental health's perfect, right? So boom. But I'd have told them a bit about that, right? And they could have made a decision on what they wanted to do with it. I could have showed them more evidence or whatever, right? What they done after that interview, mate, they could not run out the door quick enough. I was expected to go for a bit of lunch with them. And they find out more about my history, my whole version of events, right? Bearing in mind, they don't really know about the seige too much. They don't really know about none of it. All they know about is this link to the robbery and this connection from their theory, not mine, to these murders, right? That's it. Now, during this filming, what it was, I went in there like that. They called us in more or less straight away. So I've only spent 10 minutes with one, about 20 minutes with the other beforehand. We get called in there approximately 10:30. The director's ready to film. Now, you'll see this. When we go in, the room's smarter than this. There's a two-seater settee there. One sat that side, one sat that side, facing me in a chair. Now, there was a camera on my back. I had a hoodie on, a grey hoodie. So there's a camera on my back and there's a camera on them. Now, I did not know when I turned up for this interview, I did not know what they were going to ask me, what questions they had laid out. Like, you're not asking me nothing, really. You just let me roll with it, which is, I suppose, the best version of what to do. But they had a set number of questions. They were about 15 questions that they asked me. Connections to the murders, connections to the robbery, based on what I told them. But look, I was expecting to be put under a bit of pressure, right? That maybe I might have a bit of time to think about some of these questions. They might be a bit awkward, okay? Mate, the questions, what they asked me, were like asking a child. It was so simple to answer, right? I was under no pressure or anything at all. They weren't really delving into any of it. It was very skidding across the subject, if you like. Asking me sort of questions what I've already answered to them. Not really going into it or finding out more about me. They didn't want to know about none of that, really. Right, these questions weren't about that. So it was 15 questions. My pal was there. And these questions, you'll see in this documentary, every question they asked me, I answered it without any hesitation, any flicker of emotion, nothing. It came out of me, boom, 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 like it was scripted, like I was an actor. Boom, 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 under no pressure or nothing. Thank you very much. And this is laughable, right? When we had to do this a couple of times filming it, look, I'm a film star, this is just fucking ridiculous. I don't even want to be here today, really, but mate, it's going to come out and then whatever, right? You're doing a book, whatever. Who cares, right? People see the truth and that's what it's about for me. Nothing's going to happen because nothing ever does, right? I show all the corruption, but it ain't going to get nowhere. I don't expect it to, right? So going back, when we've like acted a part, when they asked me the question, who did the murders, right? And I turn around and say, me, they act all shocked like that, like they're all shocked and shit, right? And surprised. Well, we had to film that a few times. Mate, it was embarrassing. I felt embarrassed, is the truth. Anyway, after that meeting, like I say, they've run off as quickly as anything. I haven't even detailed anything about myself, about my history, about anything of it. They know hardly anything about my story.
So after the interview, because the first thing they're going to allege is that I've put you up to it or the police have got in your case. After the interview, who did you inform that you'd lied to Sky?
That was in, when was that, Sky? October. I've got the dates here. October.
You did the filming in October?
The filming, I think, I've got all the things here.
Mm-hmm.
So dates I'm not very good at. So anyway, that was in October. What it was, look, if they were law enforcement and I've told them what I've told them, right, boom, then technically they would have had to caution me and take me in for questioning, right? If I'm admitting to being part
well,
of
you think they would have informed the police? Yeah.
Well, look, they said in their emails and texts that they'll do everything they can to protect me. How can you protect me if I'm throwing my hands up to being involved in a triple murder?
Very good.
How can you? And ultimately, look, who in the world, look, listen, they're that desperate for this link and to cement their narrative, and I've come out, I'm the golden goose, if you like, and they haven't done any checks, any background information, any forward information relating to me or anything about me, right? What it was to protect myself, I waited a period of time, and I am denied about this because what I'd done next, the email and who I sent it to, mate, they could have got straight on the phone and tipped him off. So what it was, I waited till, you've had the email, Bernie.
I've got the email, yeah.
You've got the email. On the 22nd of November, I contacted directly. I don't go to anyone else. I contact them directly. Email the Chief Constable of Essex Police myself, Harrington. I emailed him. You've seen the email, Bernie. And I basically told him, dear Chief Constable, boom, 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 making you aware of a Sky documentary coming out in the future. This is what it's about. This is what I've said. Boom, 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 boom. I'm giving you the opportunity now that this is all nonsense. Bow eyes, the 140 grand, the robbery, everything that I listed, I can destroy and undermine.
So just to top it all.
Yeah.
Prior to this fiasco, had you ever heard, seen, or met Mr. D?
Never heard, never seen it.
Billy Jasper?
Never heard, never seen it.
Bolt Eyes Clark?
Never heard, never seen it. Although that man I did name, there was a connection where we went and met the money launderer to Brinksmat, but that wasn't him, it wasn't Clark, and this wasn't until 10 years after they got murdered.
10 years later.
Yeah.
Did you sit round, stand round, lay on the table at any time discussing the murder of Tucker? Have you ever put money up for Tucker to be murdered?